Pondicherry, a historic town located on the shores of the Bay of Bengal, is known all over the world for its spiritual ambience and the fragrance of the French past which hangs heavily on the city. Every year, several thousand people visit Pondicherry in order to immerse themselves in the sublime charms of this place. The town, with its quaint mixture of French Romanesque architecture and Indian styles, defies easy classification. Hybrid cultures generate cosmopolitan literature, and it is not surprising that Pondicherry is the setting for one of the most unlikely adventure story, The Life of Pi by Jan Martel. The story of Pi is set in Pondicherry, and the writer stayed in the town for nearly a year, soaking in the culture and delights of the city. As a resident of the city, I was intrigued by the way Pondicherry was portrayed in the novel. Many of the landmarks of the town are mentioned in the novel. The novelist has, of course, used his imagination to conjure up a story which spans 3 continents. However, it is the picturesque city of Pondicherry which lingers on in the imagination of the reader, and in this documentary, we try to bring that part of the novel to life. We have located all the places mentioned in the novel which are said to constitute the physical setting of the novel, and have explored them both visually and historically. Come, let us search for the land of Pi. I'm sitting on Pondicherry beach reading this beautiful novel, Life of Pi. It made me think. The early part of the novel deals with the life of Pi in Pondicherry, and we are sitting here on the beach called Esplanade in the book. And it was here that the most important scene of the novel, the resolution of the religious conflicts within the mind of Pi, is resolved near the Gandhi statue to my left. Why is The Life of Pi such an important novel? And the film based on this novel has been nominated for 11 Academy Awards, trailing Steven Spielberg's Lincoln by just 1. It is because The Life of Pi has all the ingredients that people look for in a novel. It has adventure, it has love, it has a very tight narrative, and it evokes the indomitable spirit of perseverance, of endurance, when it shows the abiding bond of friendship, indeed of love, between a tiger and Pi, both of whom were stranded after their ship sank in the Pacific Ocean. The novel Land of Pi is set in Pondicherry. The chronological frame of the novel is sometime between 1954, when Pondicherry merged with the Indian Union, and 1977, when the family left Pondicherry to immigrate to Canada. It's a beautiful novel, a novel of memory, a novel of struggle, and the incredible love between a boy stranded in the Pacific Ocean and a Royal Bengal tiger, Richard Parker. We are standing in Jardin de Botanique, the location of the novel Life of Pi. It is here that Pi and Richard Parker grew up. Pi's parents
Geeta and Santosh ran a zoo which was in this location according to Jan Martel's narrative in the life of Pi. Jan Martel describes this botanical garden in which Pi and Richard Parker lived for many years. The present location is perhaps the most famous botanical garden which was established in the early part of the 19th century by the famous French naturalist Beauvoir. Why were such botanical gardens established? The 18th century botanists believed that it is possible to classify the world of nature, replicate a veritable Garden of Eden here on earth. Seeds from all over the world were transported and saplings transplanted in a web of exchange that linked botanical gardens in all parts of the French territories. We know that plants were introduced here in Pondicherry from Madagascar, Reunion, Seychelles, and even Guadeloupe. Some of the trees that stand here are nearly 200 years old. When Victor Jacquemot visited this garden in 1829, a garden that was spread over nearly 50 acres of land, he counted more than 900 species of plants, trees, and shrubs. Many of the exotic plants that were brought here were introduced from French territories overseas. A monument that you see behind me is the grave of Perrotet, who is regarded as the founder of this garden. Though he died in Paris, his bones were brought here and laid to rest amidst the trees that he cared for so lovingly. It is in this locale that Jan Martel sets his beautiful novel, Life of Pi. The zoo in which Richard Parker and Pi lived and grew up was perhaps located somewhere around these trees. This is the train that ran between Zootown and Roseville. Pondicherry did not have a natural harbor, and so through most of its history, the French used Pondicherry as a roadstead. 3 kilometers into the sea, the ships used to be anchored and goods transported to the shore by small boats. And it was only after independence that this new harbor was constructed, and it was the location for the famous romance scene between Pi and his young love. We are standing here in Nehru Street. Behind me is the India Coffee House, the coffee house in which the narrator of the life of Pi met Francis Abbrudaswamy, who told him a story that will make him believe in God. And the story, of course, is the story of the life of Pi. During a chance meeting in this coffee house, Francis Abbrudaswamy, a close family friend of Santosh Patel and Geeta, the parents of Pi, told him about the incredible adventure that Pai had on the high seas and his survival for 227 days in the Pacific Ocean, drifting in the ocean with a Royal Bengal tiger as company. Francis Arbudaswamy said that this story is so incredible, the survival of Pai makes it a story that will make anyone believe in God. So adventure and spirituality are both combined in this wonderfully evocative novel, Life of Pai, and it began here on Nehru Street, the commercial heart of Pondicherry. After Pai left St. Joseph's, he sought admission in Petit Seminaire School, which is the best English medium secondary school in Pondicherry. His brother, Ravi, was already enrolled here, and it was in Petit Seminaire that Pai encountered his biology teacher, Satish Kumar, who instilled in him an abiding love for animals, scientific rationality, and animal behavior. His knowledge of animal behavior stood him in good stead when he was marooned in the Pacific Ocean for 227 days with the Royal Bengal tiger, Richard Parker, as his only company. Here you have Petit Seminaire. Life of Pai is a very interesting novel. It speaks about the coming of age of a boy in Pondicherry. He experiments with different religions, and at the age of 14, Pai finds Islam extremely interesting, and he was attracted to the austere practice of Islam. He asks his father to give him a prayer rug. There is a description of this mosque in Mullah Street, and I read from the Life of Pai. I came to Mullah Street. I had a peek at Jamia Masjid, the great mosque. The building, clean and white, except for various edges painted green, was a long, open construction unfolding around an empty central room. Long straw mats covered the floor everywhere. Above, two slim, fluted minarets rose in the air before a background of soaring coconut trees. Pai retains his faith in Islam even after he is rescued from the Pacific Ocean. And when the narrator visits Pai in Canada, he finds Pai keeping a prayer rug in his living room. And this shows that Pai retained a faith in all religions. This is the Church of Our Lady of Angels, built in 1855, and it stands on the same site where the Capuchins built a church, perhaps during the time of the governorship of Francois Martin. This church was destroyed in 1761 when the English East India Company occupied Pondicherry. The church was rebuilt in 1777, and in 1855, a resident of Pondicherry, Louis Guerre, rebuilt this church, and it was under the custody of the Mission des Étrangers, and it is the only church in Pondicherry where the Mass is conducted both in Tamil and in French. With such a beautiful religious structure in Pondicherry, it is no wonder that Pai got interested in the different manifestations of religion that he experienced in this land. We are now inside the Church of Our Lady of Angels. And as you can see, it's a beautiful church. The dome above the sacristy of this Church of Our Lady of Angels is reminiscent of the dome of St. Peter's at Rome. And as you can see, The sunlight streaming from the stained glass window illuminates the angels above the altar. This is the Church of the Sacred Heart, built in 1907, close to the railway station at Pondicherry. This church appears frequently in the pages of the life of Pi. Pi woke up to the chimes of the bell from this church, and when the bell rang in the morning, Pi set off to school. This Church of the Sacred Heart was elevated to the status of a basilica in the year 2011. Let us enter this church, the Church of the Sacred Heart, and see for ourselves the beautiful stained glass windows that evoke a sense of awe and mystery. 28 glass panels adorn the transept of this beautiful church. Come, let us see. This is Place de la République, a public area near the beach of Pondicherry. This area was created by the French governor Bontemps in the year 1864, when he decided to beautify the city of Pondicherry by erecting these pillars near the beach, just across from the lighthouse. These pillars were brought as war spoils when the French took control over Senji during the Carnatic Wars, and for nearly 100 years these pillars were lying in a derelict condition until Bontemps decided to use these pillars to beautify and create a public space which is known today as Place de la République. Behind me is the famous landmark of Pondicherry, the lighthouse. This lighthouse was constructed in 1838, and there is an interesting story behind the construction of this lighthouse. It is said that the chimney of the Porto Novo Iron and Steel Works, the flaring chimney of the Porto Novo Iron and Steel Work, used to distract the mariners on the high sea, and the ships used to go to the sandbars which are found on the shores of the Indian Ocean from Kadalur to Kunimede. And to protect the mariners, and to guide the ships safely to the shores, to the roadstead of Pondicherry. This lighthouse was constructed in 1838, and probably this lighthouse was responsible for safe navigation for nearly 100 years. Behind me is the War Memorial, built in honor of soldiers from Pondicherry who died during World War I. It is well known that the battlefields of Somme and Flanders took a heavy toll of life, and men from Pondicherry died in those battlefields. And in honor of their memory, this memorial was erected. And every year on Armistice Day, honor is accorded to this memorial in memory of those who laid down their lives for the French Empire. Here's the French consulate, a genuine 19th century construction. Atop this building, a very elegant building, flutters very proudly the tricolour. This site marks the oldest settlement of French Pondicherry. It is perhaps the site where the original building of the French administration once stood, and after merger with India in 1954, this building became the house of the French consulate. Perhaps the lost tomb of the first governor of Pondicherry, Francois Martin, is somewhere in the precincts of this part of Pondicherry. Such buildings open to the sea were constructed in the 19th century in order to house the colonial administration, the offices of the colonial administration. These are large constructions with vestibule verandas and beautiful columns to support the building.
So the French Institute of Pondicherry was created on 21st March 1955. So it was created when the French gave back their territories to India. So Pandit Nehru wanted the French Institute to be an open window towards France, to keep scientific cooperation going between France and India. So the French Institute has basically three departments. One department of Indology, one department of Ecology in the 1960s, and in the 1980s we created the Social Sciences Department. So the French Institute of Pondicherry is under the joint supervision of the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Scientific Research, called the CNRS. So we conduct research in those three domains. We have a lot of collection and resources. We have the biggest collection in the world of Saiva Siddhartha manuscripts on palm leaves, which thanks to our collection, we are now in the UNESCO Memory of the World Register. So we conduct also studies in the field of ecology, and that's mostly with regards to biodiversity, especially in the Western Ghats of India, which is one of the biodiversity hotspots. We have also a big library where we welcome students from every countries. We have a lot of students from the Pondicherry University also, because we are affiliated to the Pondicherry University for the past 2 years. And so this allows a lot of collaboration, very fruitful collaboration between India and different countries in the world. So we also welcome a lot of PhD scholars. So our focus is really to make it center, an international center for academic cooperation.
In the novel Life of Pi, Jan Martel says that Pi attended St. Joseph's of Cluny. Here is the school which he is supposed to have attended. And towards the rear of the school, you see a solitary tower standing. A profound philosophical lesson lurks between the pages of the life of Pi. Faith and hope remain the most enduring reason for people to believe in God. And what can make one believe more intensely than a life on a raft in the middle of the Pacific Ocean? Pi realizes that the essence of all religions is the realization that reality which sustains the universe is beyond thought and language, nirguna. And this is precisely the message of Sri Aurobindo and the mother of Pondicherry. There is a charming story about the monument located in Bharati Park in Pondicherry. It is said that several centuries ago, when a king, probably the Vijayanagara Emperor Krishnadevaraya, was passing through a village, he heard the sounds of music. He was so enthralled with the music coming from a particular house that he ventured to think that it was a temple. And he stopped at the doorstep and prayed, little knowing that the house was that of a dancing girl. When he realized his mistake, he was struck with remorse, and in expiation of the sin committed by the emperor, the dancing girl decided to construct a beautiful lake, probably the one in Mutrapalayam, from which the city of Pondicherry receives its drinking water. During the reign of Louis Napoleon, the nephew of Napoleon Bonaparte, this beautiful monument was constructed in the middle of the government park as a memorial for the woman who gave Pondicherry its water supply. This site also marks the place where the first fortresses of Pondicherry were constructed in the late 17th century. Historical records show that between 1692 and 1694, when the Dutch occupied this city, there was a fort standing here. And after the Carnatic Wars, when the peace settlement at Vienna was signed, Pondicherry was demilitarized and the fortress walls were pulled down, and the site of the fortress converted into a park, the government park mentioned in the life of Pi. This is the government park, now renamed as Bharati Park. All around this park are pillars which once supported the statue of Duplex located on the beach. These statues were brought from Senji as spoils of war during the Carnatic Wars, and there are at least 20 such pillars in Bharati Park today. This is a memorial erected in honor of William Stevens, a soldier who died in the battle for Pondicherry in 1778, 2 years after the American War of Independence. It is important to realize that when the British lost the 13 colonies, they were determined to hold on to their dominance of India, and the defeat of the French political and military interests was vital to the preservation of British political dominance in India. This memorial was erected by Sir Hector Munro, who is also remembered in Indian history as the participant in the famous Battle of Buxar. In contemporary 18th century records, the British redoubt is supposed to have existed in a place called the Red Hills, and today the local name for this area is Gorimede, perhaps a suggestion that at one point in time this was the Red Hills. This memorial stands close to Jipmer, the famous teaching hospital for which Pondicherry is reputed. The battle lines of the struggle for supremacy and dominance over Pondicherry extended from Red Hills or Gorimede all the way up to Villanur. Jan Martel's Life of Pi has had a dream run both in its written, novelistic form and in its cinematic avatar. Ong Lee's Life of Pi won 4 international awards, and this set the seal of approval before the audience of the world. The film was shot in Pondicherry, and in this documentary we have tried to locate the actual physical locations mentioned in the novel. Where does the appeal lie in the Life of Pi? Why do cinema goers and readers of the novel love the story so much that it became a runaway success all over the world? The appeal of Jan Martel's novel, Life of Pi, lies in the universal message it conveys. With faith and love, one can overcome the most intractable of situations, and this message was translated into a grand cinematic statement by Ong Lee, a success that reverberates round the world. Imagine a boy lost in the Pacific, drifting without hope of rescue for more than 227 days, and he sustains himself with the love for a tiger, Richard Parker, which he makes as the object of his attention. And throughout the novel, we find Richard Parker becoming the symbol for the survival of Pi lost in the Pacific Ocean. Hence, when both the boy and the tiger land in Mexico, Pi was distraught when he found that the tiger walks into the forest without turning back, snapping a relationship that had sustained him through his dark, tormentful days. What we get out of this novel is a message of hope, a message of love, a message of faith. Like Pi, who kept the memory of Richard Parker alive in his mind, this documentary too is a memory keeper's tribute to the power and fury of nature, to the fragility of human existence, and above all a tribute, an acknowledgement that a common consciousness animates all life in nature.